Good morning. Or whatever it is, wherever you are. So I guess it was Saturday. I got this to a point where it was looking pretty good. Thankfully, I have a staging set that makes it much easier. And like we should be able to go in time mode right now because we've got world data. And we can't. Because in a production deployment, I probably saw too many files that we're searching through here. No, I saw it in the diff. So I faked this out to have a time delay to simulate that effect. So in order to display all these objects, we need two things. We need to know what arcs we've got and how long they took. And we need to have information about all of these objects. I think it's sizes mainly in order to place them. But there's a point where we actually go create the layers that do that. And it understandably happens both when we load the arcs and when we load the objects, because there's a bunch of asynchronous stuff going on. We don't know when it's going to come in. And there's also a point okay, so you don't directly do anything, but you do add these alternate layers that tell us. No, actually, it's animation controls if there are layers that can be time controlled. And this is a thing that happens at certain times that are happening before that final object layer comes in. And the problem here is that since we're adding or removing controls from the map, this thing needs to have a reference to the map. The update arcs, add arc placements, object master, object load. Oh, wait. Object load has a map, just not using it. Okay, well that simplifies things. Well, does object load always have a map? Object load always has a map. So even if we delay that process, we can still get a time layer. Okay, well that was not as terrible as I was afraid of. Although, so that's your patch. That solves the immediate problem with solves the immediate problem. The fact that we have all of this timing dependent stuff still makes me uncomfortable. Although I've also got a kind of a big, maybe we'll return to that. So what was our time desync? We went into, well, I mean, arc is fine. Yeah, we went to that link position is annoying. It's like the first. Well, there's new Starks apparently. So either there's one player available or the last player of the previous. And you might just be the first one. Maybe you're the first one of the. Anyway. Our real concern is, okay, we're at a time. This might have to be a reload, but we've got that time locked in. Or... No, okay, yes. Yes. This is showing this time. This is based on... the start of that period. I don't actually call it legend, I call it color scale. Actually, probably should start calling it legend because I keep doing that. I mean, it's mostly color scales, but... Is legend the right word? This is all specific stuff. Yeah. Yeah, that's control. So many different cases. Actually, I didn't need to do that either. Okay, so everything seems to be working. Rename. All right. And the thing we wanted to do with that was I need to figure out what's giving you your initial value. Okay, so the problem here is that legend might be... Oh, I guess a two-word might be more distinct. Legend only shows up here. When we add it, we toggle it on, we set the data. We update the lineages. We redraw. Did I have a function for that? Update lineages at time, where time is optional. So what's the order of events? I could almost go with time here, just make a smaller number. Redraw is going to happen from there and from other things. Those are the only events I care about? Possibly. I might need to know when other time updates occur because map time equals set map time. It happens from there and from ArcList and from focus. Update tiles. Where do we call update tiles that we don't call set map time? I mean, they're starting to look pretty darn similar. What is set map time doing these days? Oh, this is doing the base layer stuff. So the point of this is that if you called update tiles, which we used to be doing from the direct time event, our base layer matched. Okay, so maybe it's because of that? Sets the map time. Oh, you know what? Set data layer sets the map time to our minimum, which is exactly what we're seeing. Which I'm not sure we want to do. In a world where we can link to a specific time. And there we go. And I think if something does come along and overwrite that, but we were doing that temporarily. And no, we were doing the update lineages right before that, but that probably comes along and does it. All right, so set map time happens at startup. Well, okay, so there's that startup period. But we've got several update tiles, kinds of update tiles that are calling that. Update tiles, probably either. We might not need an update tiles on startup, and that's the only difference. Okay, so they're frequently called together. These are... The question is, are update tiles ever called without... Well, there's arc update tiles. I think that's only from... Probably only just a convenience method for you. So really... So structurally, the thing we do right now is we separate... Of course, now we only have one reason. Oh, set map time needs a map object. Although, it does have an if map in there. I'm thinking that, like, we might collapse this stuff into set map time, except for this one little startup thing here. Which might end up doing a little bit of extra work. Actually, we might just not have a whole lot of tiles at that point to update. So update tiles itself doesn't have a map available. Oh, so update tiles, because the individual methods used their local map, did end up calling that. But everywhere we called update tiles, we were calling set map time, so. So the idea would be lose that, lose that, lose that. And then this just kind of works into here. Oh, and that's right, we're working on this too. Oh. We did get two different times. Why did we get... Oh, one of them is probably like now. Anim overlay status. We didn't set data layer. Okay, so if we did that update, Okay, now we get an update. So this is when it is invisible, which might be one of those don't do that things. Okay, that much works. Then I'll have excessive redraws. All right, so there is some tracking I want to do there, but that was a little bit of rewriting. It's going to be interim. We solved, oops, a time desync. Combine set map time and update tiles. Now you're doing like a lot of stuff. Does update lineages save the time? No, it saves the lineages. So that might be one way to do it, to actually have it sort of lazy evaluate, just in terms of when it's not even like visible that the legend is on. Okay, So we reload. We processed that a couple times, and it's not even on. Add control, remove control. So we could have it re-render when on, but it actually have to track its visible state. Do controls have anything built in for that? Add to map, on add, on remove. How about on the map? Oh wait, those layers and controls. No, maybe that was this section. Map panes, locate options. Add control, remove control, has layer, each layer, open pop-up, there is no has control. Okay, but legend is strictly related to the data overlay. So we can ask if that's on to know if we're active. Then we just have the looping problem. We want to update it every time time changes. But if we want it to take care of updating itself also, I'm kind of tempted to move the whole thing into Elm. But there's just so much data processing, I'm a little bit scared of that. I mean, maybe past the JSON parsing, it's not actually that bad. Because that gives you a very definite relationship between state and output. I don't suppose. Well, I mean, can update options isn't even like a control method. It's not probably not DOM util. Set options. Merging options passed to a constructor. Object options. Given properties to the options of the obj. Oh, L.set options shortcut. But I don't think there's going to be anything that does like a state update on the control itself. So if we want that to be lazy with respect to updates when it's not visible, I guess the updates would have to check the data visible state. So really, well, we do call redraw here. Now this is a less frequent thing, so it's not as big a deal. Although it could cause us to make a big thing. And this is once again command to redraw. So this might actually be a very general problem to like all of my layers and controls and things that they can be told to draw when they're not visible. Well, actually, leaflet sort of takes care of that for tiles, not for controls. So could we treat that as you get a time and update your data as needed? Well, no, because we still have to have some sort of like redraw trigger. So I could have that check for data overlay. Presumably, by the time add gets called, it will actually be on the map. Now, I don't know, because you can still get an EV target map. That remove would have it off. Well, I guess we don't update it there, and it's fine. So that would just have to tell it to update when it got turned on. Oh, you would actually have to track a time null. Or some sort of animation state. Because that does kind of determine what it does. So could we do this as... Well, it sort of has no opinion on time. Well, this is basically saying time is null. This has no opinion on current animation state. Set point color. This has an opinion on animation state, which I was kind of doing through a proxy of time. Now, I guess I could do this by swapping controls. That's kind of how I did my point overlays. One has a time, one doesn't. And there is no different time here. This might end up just being a redraw. Add control, remove control. That might need an update. Maybe you should still have a direct function. Hmm. And we could just cheat and rely on map time here. You probably do have like initial value. Toggle animated. That's layers. Toggle animation controls. And what was I doing? Oh, I was doing that only in the signal event. We were updating it. If we had those layers available. So default value. We were doing if time before. So that was if time. What we really want is and we should always have some, well, we should always have a time in the control. This is getting a time. Actually, I guess we would really say if it equals, then return. Which once again begs the question of what unit should time be in? I think where we have layer.options.data time. Okay, so yeah, data time was in seconds, and I think I may have had to do time as milliseconds or something else. Do I actually use that though? Well, only for duplicate render protection. Well, there's that, and that's a options thing. So I may have to have this set. This also needs to know if animation state changed. So I guess we need something separate. Because you depend on two variables. Which I guess undefined would be not equal, so that could sort of work. So you need to update if we need to update. So we have, and of course, put it in options, which means just the other thing should be in options. But those are things we set. So if we turn this into set time and redraw, and then the lineages thing would call update lineages to make sure we've got them. Then you would check let's just be a redraw. So if you just do that, we look at if this dot time equals this dot options dot time and this dot then we're good. We want to assume that this exists. And this is going to get called from redraw. It might still be convenient to have a function that takes the time and such. That's kind of what we have with update tiles. Maybe that's a thing I need to work through there. So you actually are not doing anything in... Okay, you updated the options. You are setting options. Now, I don't actually want to set time here, I don't think. Yeah, you get a bunch of other things. I don't know if you have anything... You get the data. But we might not even be in this mode. You... But we're only calling, redraw is only going to call that up, well, it's going to redraw everything else, and the rest doesn't matter on time. So I still need to do something with this. And then add and remove. I haven't done any visibility checking yet. It's probably break enough as it is. Okay, so we redrew 3 times. That's not great. Okay, nothing to show there. Okay, well that's... performing reasonably. So this makes us more conservative of lineage update. But we still have the problem that every time update, we're going to redraw this, whether it matters or not. So I can have a data visible check on you. And then we just have to make sure to redraw every time we make it visible. So that's data layer? Do we have this piece of code somewhere? Okay, so it's not actually called data, probably data overlay. Map that has layer. Do you have a map though? So this actually wants to say if there is no map or we don't have that layer, don't redraw too much. And then data overlay, when we add this control, is going to have to make this redraw just to be safe. Okay, it has to draw once on init. But data overlay shouldn't be on. Oh, you know what? Oh. This is when it's called. We did that the first thing. What about when it really redraws? There we go. So there's a bunch of extra function calls there. Oh, and we're playing. And we legitimately have to update here. So that wasn't necessarily... So what I wanted to do was have this off, so we don't autoplay. Oh, that was probably the data animated state. All right, so that does create a little pop, because it has to appear and then... Well, you know what? I can't tell if it's on. So we might actually be able to redraw it before we add it. Okay, that's a little bit more immediate. Okay, and we have our, uh-oh, you know what? I might want, I've lost my undo probably. Really what we're concerned about is over redraw here, because that should be conservative of the legend updates, lineage updates. But if we're in a different mode, we're still redrawing a lot. All right, so that's completely constant. That's completely constant. That's completely constant. So update lineages is self-conservative in what it last updated. And we just use some this variables for that. So I guess we could do a similar thing to that. Is that if it's just mode? I mean, there is a potential breakdown there. Oh, but if it's lineage color, and if we get to this point, we've deleted everything. then it depends on all the other conditions there. So maybe I actually need to move this out. Well, if this dot color is the same, a little bit brute force. Like I could wrap a check around, like, well, are we in this mode? All right, so we expect you to redraw. We expect you... What? Did I reload? Because we never actually said it. All right, so you update. You do not. Temperatures don't change anything. All right, so now in this mode, when we are not in time, that's a really big list. Is that a map size? Render implementations. Map is resized. Which has the old size and the new size of type point. All right. So when we get a map, all right, see, that's a resize event. Do we get So that's a resize event. These are all options. Events. Modifying map state. Projected pixel coordinates. Get size. Map container. Okay. So the map is already tracking its size. Hopefully it doesn't have to do a DOM read for that. Oh, I'm still gonna need to track the event probably. And points are named as X and Y. Probably going to be something less than that. Oh, now you see this is a for each. For eaches aren't good at early returns. Now your index. Okay, create in container. No, I need you. Well, it's probably 20 plus margin. And we probably need to do something smaller to check this. Eventually we need something a little bit more fine-tuned than that. Okay. Except what we sort of need to do I want the color in either of these cases. I guess I'm not really using this right now. Right, because for whatever reason, our foreground color is white. I hadn't even processed that. Maybe I did that on purpose? Maybe that was accidental? Oh, that might actually just be... That might be Firefox. Nope, okay, it's always white. At least I hope it's white. I mean, that should be the same here. Okay, yeah, swatches have color white. That's what it is. Oh. Padding, margin top. Yeah, we still want some of the other stuff. So half is not the right answer here. No. This is where I need the resize event. So really, do we have any kind of... I don't see kind of like ruler. I know that these are like 60 plus... $65 plus some margin. And probably pretty similar down here. Okay, well that's not enough. It's not quite enough. It might be too much. And a little bit of space isn't so bad. And then there is a map resize event. So now we have another thing that goes into when this is updatable. That only affects when rebuilding lineages, so really, we always rebuild that. So if we just hook up oh, maybe because I don't really defer the map anymore. Maybe that was to make sure things had loaded. Map.on. Let's try actually using that event. Uh-oh, didn't like that. That's an on event. Okay, so that is... I mean, that should actually... And we're at kind of a small time right now. Take care of that. Alright, so load timing. I'm not trying to do this one first. Although I think it turns into a gnarly issue itself. MUI. When we pivot to a lineage. It might have been... Oops, not that lineage. Maybe I did tweak this to get a different name and overrode it at some point. Okay, so that doesn't jump to... That didn't do anything, actually. Oh, because I didn't jump to the user first. That's actually another thing we'd like to do. Now, this is not the right map for this, which... Okay, pick an example. But I want... So that is probably... Picking a center of a lineage would be a good thing to... Because I was usually looking at the person first. But these are all black dots. That's usually how we handle selections. But I want to get this into data layer where I can color it and replay it and all that stuff. And that might go along with setting a time for it. Well, I mean, really just the lineage results, but I think. So when we do... select lineage, we fetch a lineage, we get back matching lives, which we use for fetch matching lives and fetch lineage. And then matching lives, I do kind of want to do as a separate overlay. Which means I need a separate event. All right, that is going to be our display. It's not going to be... I may have no opinion about that. Fetch recent lives returns on data layer. Oh, maybe I just... Do I just say data layer? But I also want to find it here. Let me flip that data layer. So can I... what's our argument order? Message model. Maybe need to separate that more. I also need to be watching my compiler. But it got 3. Oh, you need to be all bundled up. Oh, shoot, that's the gnarly bit. That is the gnarly bit. That just got straight up data that we didn't try to parse. So for this, either we have to receive that as JSON and then parse it, or we have to re-encode it. Fetch lineage, fetch matching lives, expect JSON. As json.decode.value. Then we come down here. We have is not necessarily player on this one. We do need some of this stuff. So we're going to need that. Except UR lives. We need the inner value to pass data layer. To json.decode.value. This is going to turn into a very long pipeline. Forward bar? Shoot. You know what? I think it used to be comma, and I rebound that key. So that is going to give us a result. What can we do with the result? We can map it to another kind of result. The result is error. Okay, so yeah, we can map the error, but really this is a result with a default. And oh, but I do need to actually map the error. Is this an and then situation? Call back with value, else maintain the error. And you see, I pretty much just need the case off of this. Okay, so you are a value, really. You might be lives. which puts us back to lives. And then it might be error, in which case we want failed with error. And this is why I was putting this off. Value of value is a value. Oh, because this needs to be changed as well. Expect JSON. I thought data layer did use expect JSON. Capital L, please. Expect JSON, json.decode.value. Expect JSON. Expect JSON. Oh, maybe I didn't remove a list. Yeah. But remote data wants an HTTP error. Hey, stream working. Type systems are slightly frustrating, but we're slowly making progress. So if this got a JSON decode error, what would that look like? Some kind of bad body? Okay, so how do we get a string response out of a JSON error? I mean, I guess just say decoding failed, but... no, actually, JSON is not a core package anymore. So you've got an error. Error to string. I guess I could just add a different type, but I don't want to have to deal with different kinds of faileds everywhere. Or everywhere else, rather. Okay, so we've got an error. we want to map that to a json.decode.error to string to a http dot bad body to a failed, which is getting pretty long. All right, and we were testing okay, that's in there. So we can time replay it. Yeah, wholesale moved. I guess this area fell apart? I don't know. Well, some people moved back. And we can also look at things like, yeah, a little bit of both. It pretty much follows. There's a lot more murder up there, from the looks of things. Hmm. All right. Okay. So my map was already at that time. Well, I guess I could just choose different people. I'm gonna have to get back to this. Let's see, lineage view in data layer. So I don't actually have anything to like Now I don't want to just have like a data layer jump to position every time. Because maybe you're only interested in a section of it. And I'm not sure, because I know I've been rearranging a bunch of stuff. Actually, data layer might be enough to do it. Okay, well that's like invalid, but so you're going to be the same thing. Yeah, that did not change the base map. Okay, so just sending the data layer does not change the base map. So this is probably a case where I would want to clamp the time. So if you're viewing a time that's relevant to the data, you would stay where you are. I guess that would work for location too. Well, it might be more of a like if nothing is visible, then jump to the center. If something is visible, you can leave them where they are. It actually kind of correlates to the time thing. All right, so min-max, set time. That's only in arc time for arcs. This is going to be a similar thing for data range. Oh, actually, we update our map time, but we don't do any updates back. Which, if we're constraining our time, we kind of need to do that. And leaflet dot current time. Map time is maybe POSIX. Current time needs a definite POSIX. So we go to U with a maybe dot. So if it's a time, we send it, else maybe with default command none. So our situation is server. Now we want sometime more recent. Okay, good. All right, now jump to position. I'm not normally going to have all the data on the Elm side. So when we get a data layer, set data layers, we do min and max times, and that's actually what sends it back to there. Oh, this is going to get into some map interface stuff. And you don't normally have a map. Do not by default have a map. I probably need another function for that. It does some very similar things. Var Oh, actually, the centers for the default data sets are a problem I've been avoiding because of the tutorial stuff. Now, do I actually need, do I even have means? Well, yes, I have to have means because the map tells you when it moves. But we are going to have to do map updates if this works. Now, doesn't Leaflet probably has an appropriate data structure for this? There's like bounds. Rectangular area in pixel coordinates. Well, technically, these are world coordinates. Extend the bounds to contain the given point. Oh, wait, contain the points it contains. To fit the locations with... well, I want to know if anything is in bounds, and then only update it if we don't see anything. Because seeing nothing is a little bit disturbing. So what I'm actually going to do is map you just to lat long objects. Now, some of these methods will just take pairs of points. All right, set data layer, data layer. And it's probably easier to do something like this. Yeah, so there's our tutorial stuff. Maybe for auto centering. I see the problem is, what if you actually were watching the tutorial zone? Then it would be in range. There would be data in range. Oh, so what I care about isn't are we in the bounds? It's is there a point on screen? Visible in the current map view. What's the given bounds fit to the map view? Then we're back to the bounds object. To see if we contain any points. Well, bounds, contains a single point. So this puts us back to, well, I only need to calculate that bounds if we want to go to it. I can early exit as soon as we see 1 point. If bounds.contains now technically I could be viewing this by death location. Oh no, this is going to be return because we can see stuff. And if we get down here, we need that bounds. Yeah. You're probably not going to see anything here. So we got down to do the bounds, which our default option center, zoom, fit bounds, padding, max zoom, yeah, that's kind of what I expected. And I might actually, because this is going to be right here, but if we were in here, it would be found and be fine. So we are going to need some padding on this. Now, this isn't that long. I really need this to be in pixel bounds. And this gives a point. So, shoot. There's not a lot I can do there. But if we do this, somebody get out there or just, we will actually look at an appropriate place. And it's not even center if out of view. And this looks like we probably updated our coordinates. Yeah, okay, cool. Change view if no points visible. Which will probably actually make that remote Eve thing a lot more visible. Actually, I could ignore those for the jump too, but not for the visibility. So if you were out there, well, if you were out there looking for them, you turned on the point layer, it would jump you back to where there was something. But then you could zoom out and find it, I guess. All right, so what is... Before I forget again, is that it? Yeah. Before I forget again. Okay, so we're there. I want you. I need... Okay, so you're... this thing is somewhat out, but that might be considered somewhat relevant. Just not the main play area. The main play area does get pretty extensive at times. Oh, that one's really out there. So we're looking at maybe 40,000? But it's a map. So we have to filter first. Let's see. So I'm going to 40,000. No, X. All right, so if we are looking somewhere else, hmm. That might be some funniness in how it's treating the sidebar here, size-wise. Oh, actually, yes. When the map didn't care about its center, it was fine to just overlap that. It's like it figures it out somewhat layout-wise, but our center's off. The problem is that the map tries to recenter itself when you do that. So you get this jump that is not as nice as this effect. But that is like really bad. That counted as still on. So we're even counting invisible stuff. Oh boy. I mean, it's somewhat better than it was. It covers some situations. What does it do? Oh, actually, I think that resize event made it process that. Yeah, but now we've got this problem. Yeah, so we get that jump. I guess it's trying to maintain the center. That seems to be the case. And we left the stuff on. Sidebar icon toggle. Nope. Yeah, so this might be kind of the long list. Somewhere down here. Let's see. So we are main feature. All right, so I had to think, look at load timing. That also could potentially get bumped down. So we got that to work. Right, I never fetched back from you. So that would just be a matter of what's today. Right, we found out we had a map, so we can just go back and toggle the controls again. So one of the things I've been thinking about is, should I try to move more of the fetching to Elmstead where we have more of a global view of what's going on? Now, it's still going to be an event that comes back, but that gives us more of a central place to handle those events. But when we get into the... but this data is only used here. And there's a bunch of other data when we get back to spawns that's only going to be used here. Although it does, one of the things it cleans up is I was just going ahead and trying out the new fetch API, which may be a compatibility issue. Not that there's probably other incompatibility issues, but... now this specifically, or this other stuff specifically, has to do a whole bunch of fetches. Which, now that I've already gone to the level of doing custom object data for the map placements, I should probably consolidate what I'm getting there. Oh, and this is the case where we have two things that wait on object master. And those are just promises. So really, it's just the event. Waiting on the other promise. Static biome, static objects ID. Other kind of static. Where we get our images from. I mean, I could maybe consider that all one thing and say we could fetch it from somewhere else. Static biome, static objects. This is only for the spawnable objects. Those are the kinds of things that I need to clean up. If I defer that, it does all of this stuff. Turns a promise that we don't care about. Although that might be a little bit of a better place to do like some of this stuff. Oh. Right, I set this up so you... Well, this wasn't assigned to anything. So I could make it wait on all this stuff. So I got you, I got all these I'd like to compress. This is load tiles also doing it. If I actually want to get rid of fetch, I'd have to turn you into something else. Load tile. So we are doing promise stuff. And we are using it in two different ways. So that we would not necessarily want to push out. I mean, we could. It'd just be like send a message, make a request, send a message back. And then I'd have to write it back to the right tile. Even the promise API could be a compatibility issue. All right. I is never. I'm not really. 2015, 2016, 2015. 2015. I mean, it's getting there, but the other problem is pretty similar, actually. I mean, just the canvas drawing would probably kill most things that were older. And then we got this little feature. Oh, so you're actually down in... Wait, tile data cache. Oh, layer.cache, layer.cache. How much are you doing after that? You're doing a little bit more. I mean, functionally, a callback could work there. All right, so moving that event out doesn't really change our load timing at all. It just changes when we do the call and removes the fetch. So if Elm fetches the object list, we could have Elm wait until it gets both pieces of information. You'd have to do a bunch of checking to make sure that if it only got one, it sent it on. Well, args in particular. Hmm. What do I do with you? The real thing here is asynchrony. And you're just doing do we have an everything check. Arcs.for each, well, if there's no arcs, we can't do that. And actually, but you're doing the object size because the other one is just assumes we have it. I mean, well, you could do more promise stuff and struct it as a double then. But you do come in from here. We do potentially need that in the front end. And you get a time. I can move that object list out. I can have a single event that it comes back. Eventually, we could get the object spawn data. May or may not be the same file, we'll have to see. Do we even display placements? Yes. We can display placements by default. And I guess I don't technically need them until you hit a zoom level where you display them. And in an arc, so you could do some deferred loading there. So I don't think that moving that around. So I don't have a problem with it right now. So I can't evaluate solutions against that problem. And we actually do have our requests. So Elm is actually our biggest thing right now. Objects is sort of big, but our data files are comparable. Oh, yeah. Symbol defs. There we go. It just pulls that directly from the SVG, so you kind of have to tweak things. The rest of these are kind of okay. I guess it's too close to the edge of the screen. You have to keep remembering to do that when I update things. All right. So it's not a huge thing, but it is a precursor. Well, it's a precursor to loading that view, which you'd need it for anyway. So this might have to be a thing that kind of goes back in the someday pile. So that's a big thing. Expired objects is going to be a big thing that gets into more of our data updates. Lots of data things. I think we include data info at this point. Got a little bit of that. All right. So for little things to do now. That might be a tractable one. Control, okay, that's on the map by default from layers with the get attribution method. Turn a string containing HTML to show the attribution control whenever the layer is visible. And it seems like it merges duplicate ones, but it doesn't really recognize, but you only can return a single string. So if there's like, this layer includes some bits from that guy, and the other layer has some from that and some different stuff, you don't really have a good way to do that. So the only thing I can think of right now is to essentially have like dummy attribution layers in a layer group. They're like all the individual pieces where there are individual pieces. HTML text shown before the attributions. So that could probably cover my part. Any of these data layers are, well, the data layers are kind of all me as well. All the generation stuff. So those might actually be kind of okay. The awkward one is that where I'm using the object graphics, that's also, it's like all Jason's art. I did some rendering work, but in order to not have that duplicated, I have to just do one tech there. So we're using this right now in biome image. Biome image. Screenshot. Oh, right, because they are images. They're just very low resolution. Screenshot image. Crucible's the same. Well, it's just a different seed. Fractal layer gets the default. It's like Jason's algorithm, it's my code. That has a custom attribution. That one's pretty much fair. It's the object. No, object overlay. It's key placements that like kind of include all of that other stuff. And then also include one tech. So key placement sprite, which we derive from maplog. Works because there's always some other layer on. But this layer itself, well, all right, it's in a layer group where okay, that was for possibly overlaying some stuff. But it is in a layer group. And then create arc map log layer is also layer group for overlaying some stuff. But that would give us a hook. Well, I guess I could replace certain other layers with layer groups if I needed to. That's really the only stumbling point, but it does, we're just kind of assuming other layers will be visible. So key place sprite has that by default. And I guess that's how it's been working so far. So if we could create I mean, I could just make this all part of the default attribution. You might be able to confine a configuration where that wasn't on. But actually, well, no, uncertainty is nothing. I'm kind of thinking that these layers should get moved into just time. But then, well, then maybe that becomes a server selector with Crucible as one of them. All right, so when we go down to our sprites, then we include. Now, I'm not sure if they're going to like having a layer included. No, these should be alternate. They shouldn't be included twice. Now, this is going to be a little bit redundant because the biome layers also include all of this stuff. But if you did, for whatever reason, let's see, where do we put that together? So it's the arc layer. Update arcs biome layer. Yeah, so that will work by itself. It's not a complete system by any means, but I'd have to like go into Leaflet and rewrite it handles attributions in general to be able to handle multiple individual things on a per layer basis. This is actually going to become a little bit more relevant because I want to make a. I mean, I might actually. We could start working on. Go back to here. And since I've fixed everything else, I can reload and stay there. I probably need to find my center, though. Area I'm most familiar with. And just kind of get things set up for working on biome stuff again. Although that means I'll have to be very careful about what to deploy. All right, so we are clean. So you might want checker, might not need that. I want object overlay. I think I've only got the object overlay right now. So actually one of the things I need to do is just get the objects rendering again. Okay, so that's just available. Inhabit. You're not a base. I mean, it's kind of going to be a base map setup. Okay, we may have broken something. Biome is undefined. Right, this is where I need to define all of the object load stuff. Oh. Yeah. So this is where I actually probably want to step back and define better data for myself. Oh, do I need to wait for this to load? Maybe what I did done before, and I need to... Do you get properly promise.all static biomes, then promise.all static objects. Probably was like returning this thing. Then okay. Oh, I moved how I did my blurring stuff since I worked on this last. It's not all images. Can I do that? Object layer, is there? Yeah, class name. That's better. Of course, these squares aren't actually what we want. Now we have some capability to draw objects. So that will make it much more practical to see if we're generating the right objects. All right, so right now we are generating data. I guess we're kind of moving back to Well, it's probably just time to wrap up. I guess I could put that down as some fixes. Because this was kind of temporary, but I probably need to do some refactoring work on this to separate the drawing from the data setup. Because I can use the drawing portion for the generated layer as well. And all the drawing code's going to be common. I just have to, well, they use different data formats. Key place is an actual log of sorts. Whereas the other one, you go through the coordinates and say draw it if it's here. Well, actually, I could turn that into a placement log. Just go through the coordinates in general, and then that would kind of be your update tiles method. And it would work very similar to map logs. But that means we need to extract, still need to extract the drawing. So that's after world gen. They even have a note for that. Object generation is kind of what I want to work on right now. And that's going to have subtasks such as factor out object drawing from key place parsing. We need a object gen sprite layer so we can actually see how well we're matching. At some point we have to do small object blocking. And I forget if I'd done... Looks like we've done springs. Let's see, I think that well, eventually there is tar monument, there is rift. Oh, object update. Single map chance file, which is going to be the object data I might be able to do here, but right now I've got the object size in my object file. So I'm going to have to see if it makes sense to do separate files or just go ahead and process that, or like process the objects and keep the sizes as a cache and can reuse that elsewhere, or how that's going to work. And we got all of our little generation details. All right. So that's some notes. So that's a fix. That's back on. Oh, so I was actually creating that, which is kind of unnecessary. Simplest way to do that. And object load, which doesn't even need to do that. I guess one way to do, well, I'm not actually using that promise, but a simplified way to handle this would be something like promise.resolve. Maybe we keep that around. Setting up for object gen work. All right, and then I just, probably not a good idea to get into a major endeavor right now. Maybe I should actually start with the data updates, because that's like a completely separate thing next time. And then I can continue on map stuff after that. And then hopefully this will actually the time view will actually work in staging, so it can be moved to the production, and then I'm sure as I'm playing with stuff, I'll be finding little kinks in how that works. All right, well, that's it for now. Thanks to everybody who hosted me. Let me see. I didn't have that open. If I can find anything to recommend. And this is about when I'm usually on. So Wednesdays are working out. So next time will be Friday morning, as far as planned work. Looks like Dev is working on some A/B testing web stuff. If you're looking for someplace cool to hang out, that's someplace cool to hang out. Oops. Twitch autocomplete is actually getting in the way sometimes. But yeah, if you want someplace cool to hang out, it's a place cool to hang out. Thanks for hanging out with me. Goodbye and until next time.